everybody, it's Miss C. All right, so we're starting a new project today. So as you can see, this is our project. Basically, it's the skeleton drawing project. It's really good because it helps practice some grid drawing skills, some shading skills, all that you've been working on. And then you get to learn a few new skills like a little bit of painting stuff and a little bit of cutting out things with X-Acto stuff. So I have a few student examples here. These are all from a couple of years ago because it's been a little bit since we've done this project. So you can see this one with some rib cage and pelvis, this one here with some hands, this one here with another rib cage pelvis combination, very popular rib cage pelvis combination, and this one over here with a skull. I believe this was one of my advanced kids. They got to pose the skeleton a little bit differently than most. All right, so the things that you're gonna need. You're gonna need a little worksheet for a reference image. You're gonna need a little 3x3 viewfinder. You're gonna need some brown paper, a pencil, and a ruler. You're gonna need black and white colored pencils, and potentially a pair of scissors, depending on if you like the layout of some of the things on here. All right, do be cautious. You will also want your portfolio pocket because you'll notice that this doesn't quite fit in there, and this is already bigger than your average folder. So in order to keep this properly safe from things, it does need to stay in your folder and preferably in my classroom. If you don't have that, then you just need to make sure that you're carrying it very carefully in your hands because it does not fit in your backpack without getting crumpled, and that will take out of your craftsmanship section of your grade. All right, so first thing that we need to do, set all that aside, is this is our reference sheet. Basically, this is where you're gonna be picking out what you're gonna draw from. This, for us this year, we have a double-sided little sheet that has some skeleton parts on it. And as I said, you might need a pair of scissors because if you don't like where something is placed, there's no reason why you can't cut it out and move it around. So what you're gonna be doing is you're gonna be taking your little grid finder, and your little grid finder is gonna determine which section of the skeleton you are drawing. So if it were around the skull, it'd be kind of like so. But what you gotta consider as you are placing this around, because this can move all sorts of places around here, you need to consider your compositional rules. So we know very first off, rule of thirds says your focal point, whatever the thing that you want people to look at the most, should not be dead center. So if I see anyone trying to do this with their skulls, you're gonna be losing some points. You have plenty, fill the space. So again, if you're trying to do one of these numbers where you're like, I have 2 bones, you're gonna be losing some points. Hope they can hear that laugh. Variety of size, obviously there's many sizes of things. You wanna kind of look at each individual bone. I've got a big scapula, I've got some medium-sized ribs and some small vertebra in here. If I'm looking more at the skull, big, small, medium-sized things, all that good stuff. Try and have that variety of size. Overlapping is good, but you're really only gonna get that whenever you have 2 layers of bones on top of one another like so. But you will get the overall overlapping effect depending on how you do your background. So if you don't get it in your bones, you're gonna need it in your background. Repetition. Clearly bones look like other bones, so you might get some repetition there. But again, if you don't get it in your actual skeleton part, you can get it in your background. Point of view, you will probably not get in this particular drawing. That's okay. Background control, not something we're gonna worry about with this one. Layers, you will automatically have some layers, but if you can get more than 1 layer, you're gonna be great. All right, last one. Framing is definitely possible depending on how you organize everything on here. For example, if I stick this over my pelvis, I can have this nice little frame for something in my background through the holes of the pelvis or just around those outside edges. They would all act as frames. Leading lines can happen in this particular one, especially if you have something like this, where if you want this rib cage area to be your focal point, then all of these ribs do bend up towards it, or this arm comes up towards it and can act as a leading line. So depending on how you manipulate your space, you can have more or less. You need at least 4 compositional rules to make 100 in our class. If you have less than that, no good. If you have more than that, the better. So the first thing you gotta do is figure out what you're gonna draw. Again, this tends to be a pretty popular combination somewhere in this zone, but I do want to point out that you do have your rule of thirds lines already on this grid. So whatever you decide to draw, if it's straddling 1 or 2 of these little dots, that's best. Also remember, overlap the edge of your little paper. So for example, if I wanted to do this right here, I can have my pelvis on these 2 dots and have these 2 free, and that would work pretty well for me. For the sake of brevity, I'm gonna go ahead and say that's where I want it. Now, if I tried to put this in the same spot every single day, I would drive myself absolutely crazy. So don't even attempt it. Just tape this down, leave it alone. This will be like so. I can lift it if I need to see a detail, and then otherwise it will stay exactly where it is. Do not try and leave this loose. It will not work. You will cry. So just tape it down. Don't try and make yourself crazy. At the end of the project, we will take all these little pieces of plastic back. You're not going to need them for other projects. You'll need bigger ones for other projects or smaller ones for other projects. So this is not something you want to keep. In fact, this entire sheet is probably going to be turned in with your project. So we can compare how you did here to how you did here. All right, so now I have that. I'm going to get my brown sheet of paper. So that is prepped. Now I need to prep my paper. All right. So I'm going to use this paper because it's a little bit torn, which means I don't really want a kid to have to use it. All right, so I have a ruler. There's an inches side and a centimeter side. I'm going to line up the inches side, and remember the first tick mark is where 0 is. The 0 is not at the edge, so you want to line up 0 with the edge of your paper. And then I'm going to use a Sharpie for this just because that way y'all will be able to see it on the screen. Y'all would use a pencil for this. So y'all use pencil. I'm using Sharpie so you can see. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to make a mark every 3 inches. So every 4 inches. I'm sorry. 4 and 8. And the last one, 12, is going to be at the very end. I'm going to slide this ruler down. I'm not going to try and turn my paper or nothing. I'm going to make a mark at 4. I'm going to make a mark at 8. Remember, if I don't mark both sides, then my ruler can go wonkus catty weird. I'm going to line up my ruler to my 2 marks. Sometimes if you're having trouble with that, by the by, you can put your pencil on one mark and use that as a fulcrum to twist your ruler until it hits the other mark. That is a very useful trick that I use fairly often. I'm going to draw in my grid. This is a grid drawing practice, meaning that you're going to be drawing just like you did on the worksheet for the jumbled flower and on the worksheet for the tiger, should you have been in my class and had those worksheets. It's the same way that you're drawing this. Now I'm going to turn this whole paper. A lot of kids like to try and measure this way now and do the ticky-ticky. Can you? Yes, but I like to draw lines this way and measure this way because that's just more comfortable for me. Again, 0 on the edge, make a mark at 4, make a mark at 8, slide the ruler down, line up 0 with the edge, make a mark at 4, make a mark at 8, line up my ruler, draw my line, and draw my line. Again, yours, pencil. Mine, pen. Mine, pen only because you need see it. All right, from here, I can begin my grid drawing experience. So if I'm looking here at my grid, I can see that only a little bit of my skeleton is showing in this box. If I were to make a little mark here saying that's about where halfway up my box is, I can make a corresponding mark about halfway up my box on my actual brown paper. And I know that this is going to be lower than that. So again, my little spinal connection, I guess, is gonna be about right here. And there's this lump that's about there. And it's gonna have its piece right here or so. All right, so that is all that's showing in this particular box. And I'm going to continue that methodology until I get all 9 of my boxes drawn into my brown paper. Now, this was also drawn on brown paper, as was this skeleton here. But you'll notice that they no longer look brown. If you get in real close, you can actually see that this has been colored. This has been colored with a black and white colored pencil. What I have as a suggestion to you, first off, when you're deciding what needs shading, look at your picture first. So get in real close on this. And you can see right in here where this little V is, right in there, that's where I have some shading. It's very light shading. I don't have a ton of hatch marks. And I want to shade this first with my black colored pencil, as though I don't need to worry about coloring it white at all. I'm just going to make this a nice light shade of gray. And I'm also going to color around my edges just a smidge, very, very lightly. I don't need this to be very dark. I just need it to exist as not white. And I'm pretending like I don't need to color it white at all. Now, I would normally do this after I've drawn the entire thing, but not so. If I look at here, I can see that the inside of this little spinal section has these dots, which means it's also going to be shaded a little bit darker. So I'm going to have this be a light gray situation, very lightly done. And it also has these little divots, so I'm going to give it some little divots. Nothing crazy, nothing insane. And once I have these on, now I will go in and I will worry about white. And what I found in this project is that you're going to eat your white pencils real hard. So keep a sharpener nearby if you have one. If you don't have one, cry, because you're going to have to get up and find a sharpener pretty often. And you can literally go over, because black is so much stronger than white, you can literally go over everything that you've just drawn, the whole thing, with little circles, pressing with firm but not hard pressure. And it's got to be little circles or you're going to smear your black where you don't want it. And you can color the entire area, even over your blacks. And what you're going to end up with since black is so much stronger than white, just about blend it exactly as you need, like so. And you just need to do that to all 9 boxes. All right, so eventually you're gonna have a whole little skeleton drawn out like so. Again, you will see that you don't have any grid lines still showing through here because your grid should be pencil. But once you have that completely drawn, then you are finished with step 1. And then you can move on to step 2, which is background. Do not cut out your skeleton before you finish your background, because once you cut it, it is super delicate and it's gonna rip a lot. So you wanna try and get it cut and glued down in 1, maybe 2 days. All right, bye.